Hey, Happy New Year! Today I'm going to talk about the 6 books that I enjoyed the most in 2021. First of all, I'm going to give a little update on life stuff. So if you just want to, get to the goods, then you can skip ahead. I've got timestamps down below. You can find the books there. Otherwise, stick around and I tell you my life story. So basically, as I mentioned in previous videos, I've left Japan. I've moved to Ireland. There's a few reasons for this, but the main one really is that, as I mentioned in previous videos, unfortunately my aunt died this year, and where she was living, the house in Ireland, this house, is empty, was empty. So there's lots of little things that my family was dealing with. My family lives in London, and like a leaking roof and house insurance and like lots of small things that kind of needed somebody living here. And so I've come over as a caretaker basically, while the house stuff is sorted out between my father and his siblings. I'm not sure exactly for how long it's going to be. When that period is over, I'm not planning on going back to Japan. I don't think I couldn't at the moment because my visa is expired and I don't have residency, and so I wouldn't be able to go back in because of the pandemic. But I'm not sure I would want to anyways, because I feel like I was there for 7 years. It was a good stint. I feel like the Japan chapter has come to a close, and then what happens next, I'm not sure. If I'm going to be in Ireland or if I'm going to be in a different country, I'm kind of, thinking about my options, and we'll see what happens. But for now, at least, I am here in Ireland. And that's pretty cool. But speaking about moving around the world, I'm really happy with the range of countries that are on this list of 6 books that I really enjoyed in 2021. We've got Ireland, ancient Greece, Japan, Finland, Russia, and Scotland. So yeah, I hope that this year I can keep my reading sort of diverse when it comes to different countries. Obviously, I'm an English speaker, I read in English, so I don't mind if there's a slight bias towards Anglophone writers, but I do want to be able to see what the rest of the world has to offer. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the books, starting with the only one that I actually have with me physically, which is Normal People, that I read here. In this house. It was just waiting for me when I got here. So it's almost the first thing I saw when I walked in the door. And I'd wanted to read it, and coming to Ireland, I wanted to start reading more Irish literature as well. So yeah, it was like a sign. This is the story of Marianne and Connell, 2 people who have a relationship from the end of their high school years through their university years. And this sort of charts that relationship and how it develops and deteriorates, and the bond between them, which is sometimes romantic, sometimes not romantic, sometimes, it's better not to go into it really, because you're never going to do it justice, because the whole point of the book is to sort of explain what the relationship is. I'll admit, when I started it, it took me a while to get into it. Like the whole high school section, I was kind of like, what's the point of this? But when they get to university and there's a role reversal in their relationship and their status, their social status, then that role reversal kind of made something click for me, and I understood everything that had happened, and I was like, oh, we were leading up to this, and that's why, okay, I get it now. And then after that, it was fine. So I just had to wait till they got to uni, and then it was all it was good then. I understood what the book was about, if that makes sense. Even though there's this quote right at the beginning from George Eliot, the opening kind of quote, which is so perfect. It's the best opening quote to a book I think I've read, in terms of how well it prepares you and tells you what the book is going to be about. So I really should have maybe had more faith. But I think also this quote maybe helped me keep going through those bits at the beginning where I didn't care so much. So I'll read it anyways. It's by George Eliot. It is: one of the secrets in that change of mental poise which has been fitly named conversion, that to many among us neither heaven nor earth has any revelation till some personality touches theirs with a peculiar influence, subduing them into receptiveness. So yeah, it's about change because of another person having this influence on you. And in this particular, the wording of this one about being subdued into receptiveness, and the revelations that are to be found on heaven and on earth, this sort of sense of awe and this sense of power and dominance as well when it comes to the formation of a relationship. And that all of those feelings that are like kind of encapsulated in this George Eliot sentence are like explored so well through this book, so well. You know, the thing where people say like, I've always felt this way, but I've never been able to put it into words until I saw it or until I found it in a book somewhere. So yeah, I found a lot of personal stuff like surprisingly in these pages, which was kind of shocking for me because I had that feeling and I was like, wow, loads of people have read about this. I thought it was just, you know, my inner recesses of my subconsciousness or whatever, but here they are in Marianne and Connell's relationship. And like, I just love the project of this book, maybe more than the storytelling aspect of it. The idea of writing just about a relationship and not necessarily a romantic relationship, but taking this unit of two people rather than one person and another person, and how they like, you get the sense that they have their own lives in it, which is also done really well, I think, like beyond each other. But that's not the point of the book. The point of the book is how they grow and develop alongside each other, and the way they impact each other's lives. So yeah, it was just really good, and it's I think, like, you know, modern, all those things that people say, modern classic and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up holding up in the future. Next one is Electra by Euripides. This was a play. I hadn't read a Euripides play in a while, and I was so happy to come back to him. He's definitely like shaping up to be, if not already, one of my all-time favorite writers. So basically the backstory is Agamemnon, the father of the family, has gone away to fight in the Trojan War. When he comes back, his wife murders him along with the lover that she's taken while he's been away. Then her immediate problem, or her and her lover's immediate problem, are the children that she's had by him, because the boy could grow up and then one day avenge his father and take his rightful place as king and all that. And the daughter, who is Electra, could have a child who could be a son, and then he could do that thing of coming back and taking the throne. So what they do is they send the boy very far away, they exile him, and they send they marry Electra to a peasant who lives kind of like on the outskirts of the city, I think. So she's has to live a peasant life. But the idea, I think, they say, is basically that the peasant will have, you know, like his peasant blood will dilute her noble blood, and then like if she has a child, it'll be the son of a peasant. And it'll be harder for him to sort of like reclaim the throne or something like that. Anyway, this is all explained in like the first couple of pages through Electra's monologue, because we open, I think, with her bemoaning her fate, because she's all grown up now. And yeah, the story is the two children, Orestes and Electra, taking vengeance on their mother, Clytemnestra. The thing I loved most about this play probably were the characters and the family dynamic, especially Electra, who has just got this compelling like strength of character and purpose, and also like this kind of dogmatism, this conservative traditionalist dogmatism, where she, you know, kind of worships the father as the patriarch of the family, even though he's dead now, right? And another like kind of great and really modern feeling character is Clytemnestra, the mother, because when she comes in on the scene, she's trying to convince her daughter about how she's not really that bad. And she's quite a sympathetic character, despite the fact that we don't really like her and we can see her weakness and her flaws. She's got this sort of like compassion, and she talks about her case, about, you know, how she murdered the husband. And she says, but think about what he did to me and how I took my vengeance, because what he did to her was he murdered Iphigenia, who I actually read about last year, I think, and talked about in some video, because Iphigenia is also an amazing character. But this whole family is great, right? And but yeah, in this one, what am I saying? Clytemnestra, yeah, she says, think about my side of the story and imagine if the genders were swapped. Like, she literally says, imagine if I were a man and I had done these things, then would I seem such a villain? And that's just like, what? You're gender swapping in 2,500-year-old ancient Greek tragedy? So it just felt so amazingly modern and like relatable and fun as well. It's like this grotesque family drama where, you know, everyone's kind of conspiring to kill each other. So I don't know what's not to love about that, to be honest. Next up, from Scotland, we have The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner. This was probably the weirdest book I've ever read. It is... yeah, it's like hard to describe, even like just the story of what it is. It's quite short, but it's got so much stuff. Where do you even begin with it? It's a gothic novel, kind of, and it's also kind of a satire, and in ways it feels a bit like historical fiction in places. The memoirs themselves are basically about a young man who is brought up in a religious fundamentalist family, basically in Scotland at a very particular moment in history where there's a lot of what you call it, sectarian strife, like between politics and religion, and what group you belong to is very important. And he is in a very particular group with very particular beliefs, which are quite intolerant. And that's obvious to the reader from the beginning. And then he meets this strange character who's got this sort of mysterious power to him. And this character, basically, his role in the novel is to guide and direct someone who's already brought up in a kind of quite fundamentalist, religious, intolerant like milieu, to push him even further and basically see how far he can push him in his beliefs towards committing basically terrible acts. And it's really good. It's really, really good. Like I said, it's the weirdest thing I've read, and like I can't do it justice in a short summary, so I'm not going to try to. Maybe I'll try and explain it later in another video. I don't know. I'm sure it'll crop up again. But yeah, definitely not what I was expecting at all, but in the best way possible. Number 4 is The Crab Cannery Ship by Kobayashi Takiji. I should have said, actually, the writer of the Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner is James Hogg, who is an ancestor of Alice Munro, a contemporary writer. So that's funny. But anyway, moving back to The Crab Cannery Ship by Kobayashi. This is a book about a group of sailors on a ship, which is sort of like a factory, and it's sort of, because it's both, it's used by the owners to exploit the workers on both sides, so that the rules, the maritime laws which protect sailors don't apply because they're on a factory, but the factory laws which protect workers don't apply because they're on a boat. So basically they can be exploited to create maximum profit for capitalists. So this book was a sort of like proud, unashamed, sort of political tract almost against capitalism, and also a really interesting and like engaging historical fiction. So like I thought that wouldn't be possible. How could you be sort of passionately involved in a political kind of project, trying to get someone to agree with your values, and at the same time make interesting art, basically? And yeah, it works. It's great. I just kind of, it stuck with me in a way that like I've never read anything like it, and I'm so glad that I have read it, that it's gonna stay with me definitely for the rest of my life, I think. And so like it made me more aware of the types of fiction that you can write. And now we are basically in the top 2, and I haven't ranked this list really. I've just listed them in the order that I read them backwards. So these are the earlier 2 books that I read this year. But if I were to like narrow this list down to just 2 books, then I would probably pick these 2, in terms of like they're probably now like 2 of my favorite books ever. And one of these is Comet in Moominland by Tove Jansson. This is a children's story about a comet which is heading towards the Earth, and Moominland, who sets off with his friend Sniff to see what he can do about it by talking to some astronomers in an observatory. And on the adventure they meet lots of people, they meet lots of strange creatures, and it's just one of the most wonderful children things I've ever read, and I recommend it to adults as well. I think Tove Jansson is a wonderful writer. The writing is wonderful, the imagination is wonderful. It's just a great little adventure, which I think is so rare in that like kids will get one thing out of it and adults will get another thing out of it, and it'll still be like quite satisfying for both, I would imagine. But maybe, I don't know, it just really touched something personal for me, and I like comets as well. And then the other book was Demons by Dostoevsky. This book, it's just the characters, they're with me still. Like I like often think about them. I often kind of think about Kirillov and Stavrogin and Shatov. They just like appear sometimes, and I think like, oh yeah, you're like that. Like they're like real people that I met, I feel, and that's just something that's so rare in books. Even when you enjoy a character, you don't feel, I think, that they're just there kind of like as humans. after you've finished reading it, and then some months have passed. It's a time of social unrest, and there's like a certain secret group of people who are planning something terrible and horrible, and it's based on a real life murder which was in the press at the time, and Dostoevsky was really horrified by this murder, and he saw it as standing for, you know, like what's going on and the gap between the generations and what progress meant for Russia and all sorts of things. So he dramatized it in this novel, and it's a really, really good novel. I recommend it if you feel like a giant Russian classic. Then this is I think an underappreciated one probably. So there you have it. Those are my 6 reads that were top reads for 2021. Let me know what your favorites were, and if you've read any of these, or if you'd be interested in reading any of these. And yeah, I look forward to making lots more little videos like this in the year 2022. So happy reading, stay safe, and see you later. Ciao!